What up, cucks? What it do in this piece? Welcome to another video by The Hater. This time we're going to talk about tonight's pay-per-view there. TLC, Tables, Ladders, and Chairs. Oh my. You understand me, motherfucks? So, yeah, let's just get to it because if I'm being honest, I didn't really enjoy this pay-per-view at all up in this bitch. All right. So, the pre-show, I didn't watch the pre-show because I didn't know there was one, and I started watching it a little bit later. And the pre-show, apparently, Humberto Carrillo defeated Andrade in what was a rematch from Raw. Who gives a shit? Honestly, who cares? Like, let's just move forward with this. What's her face? Zelina Vega can decide to choose either Andrade or Humberto, and then we can just move forward to wherever the fuck that's gonna lead, you know? And I don't like where it's going, honestly. Both these guys were drafted relatively high. Andrade was drafted in the first round of the draft, which of course meant nothing because Brock Lesnar was drafted, and no one gave a fuck about him. He's gone, motherfuckers. So, yeah, keeping all that in mind, right, this just felt like it meant nothing, and that's probably why it was on the pre-show cucks. All right. Next up, we had a pretty good match, I'm not going to lie. The New Day versus The Revival, right? They come out, Michael Cole or whoever, I think it was Michael Cole, he says like, well, the Revival are going to have to do some flips tonight because, you know, their thing is like, no flips, just fists or whatever. So yeah, that makes sense. You know, of course they're going to do some flips. It's a ladder match. The match was pretty good. I'm not sure if Kofi just recently cut his hair, but it looked different to me. I don't know how I feel about it. It's a little too short, but it is what it is, right? I don't know if you can still do the little double ponytail things, even if they, you know, the thing that brought into the dance, if you will. So, interesting spots here where at some point the Revival does a shatter machine off the ladder, kind of like I think Kofi was on the ladder and the bald one, I think that's Scott Dawson. I could be wrong. He picks him up in like, you know, like a flapjack off the ladder, like they're both on the ladder, and then the other one hits like the second part of the shatter machine. That was pretty sick. At some point, once again, the bald one does like a suplex to Big E while they're like on a ladder that's stuck between like the ropes and another ladder, and he misses. Like he does a suplex, but Big E just barely hits the ladder, which I don't know whose fault that would be, his or Big E's, probably both. But that was whatever. Like he took the only reason it didn't work is because the guy who did the suplex fell on the ladder and the other guy fell on the ground. So like kayfabe wise, you would think that the guy on the ladder would be in more pain. In reality, probably the guy on the ground is in more pain, but it just seemed like the guy that was on the ladder took, you know, more of a shot from it, if you will. So, but it was still a good spot, you know, like it was still like a decent spot, and they corrected it by taking Big E, like, bald guy, I think Dawson, he basically no-sold the fact that he just, you know, his back hit like the ladder. He no-sold that completely, and he just got Big E, put him on the ladder, and then like the other guy, Wilder, I guess, did like a splash, and he did a pretty good splash, almost like a cross-body, like where he like jumped as if you do a cross-body and landed on the ladder in a splash and put Big E through the table. And then a really cool spot. In my opinion, the big ending is a pretty fun finisher. A lot of people don't like it because, you know, people are like, oh, Big E just grabs a guy and takes a back bump. Yeah, but it's simple and sweet. I dig the big ending. He did it off the ladder to one of the jabrones, right? He got him with one arm and just did a big ending. It was sick. I really enjoyed that. The match ended with Kofi Kingston being left on one ladder with the other guy, and they're fighting it off. Kofi Kingston grabs the belts, which are, you know, like they're hung with like this thing that connects the belts basically, and he smacks the belts into this guy's face, and then grabs the titles, eventually retaining the titles, motherfuckers, right? I really enjoyed this match for what it was. The biggest problem of this match, just like the biggest problem with honestly this entire card, is that it just felt jobberish. You know, it just felt jobberish. Like I don't care. None of these guys feel like a big deal. Kofi Kingston doesn't feel like a former champion. Big E, who should be a star, doesn't feel like a star. The Revival, they're just like two short fat guys. I mean, there's nothing interesting about them whatsoever. Like they're fun in the ring. I'm not gonna lie, but it's just like they've been spread too thin. You know, they're spread too thin, even though they're fat. Yeah, it's fucking weird. But like, you know, one week they're like teaming. They're like Shane's boys, right? Another week they're somewhere else. Then they're like teaming with Randy Orton. What the fuck is going on? You know, so I don't really like them that much anymore. So this match, I didn't really care about it, but it was one of the 3 title matches of the night. So yeah, it was a ladder match too. So that's always kind of fun, I guess. Next up, we had Alistair Black versus Buddy Murphy. This match felt like a pre-show match, and it played out like a pre-show match. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that it wasn't a fun little affair. You know what I mean? They did a good job. Like they had like 14, 15 minutes maybe. They did a pretty good job, you know? But the problem is that it was presented as if it was supposed to be this big deal. You know what I mean? Like Buddy Murphy and Alistair Black have been going at this for who gives a shit? They're both jobbers. I don't care at all about either one of these two jabrones, right? So the one thing I did not like is that Buddy Murphy did this combination at some point, right? He tried to do the little Kamigoya thing that Kota Ibushi uses as a finisher in New Japan. And Alistair Black just grabs his leg, just stops him from doing it. Like, after he does the knee, he just grabs him, and he's like, you didn't really hit me, right? And then they do a little combo, which leads to Buddy Murphy doing like a jumping knee, then hitting the Kamigoya, right? Then picking Alistair Black up and doing a brain buster on him, like a jumping brain buster, right? Now, of course, I knew that wasn't going to be the end of the match because he didn't hit the Murphy's Law. He just hit a brain buster instead. So, like, wrestling logic tells me that that wasn't the end of the match. Problem with that, of course, is that the way that Buddy Murphy has been booked, this should put someone away. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a knee to the face, right? It's like you grab, it's a knee to the face with the jumping knee, then you grab the guy's arms and knee him in the face, right? Then you hit a brain buster. The match ultimately ends with Alistair Black hitting the Black Mass. And I'm thinking to myself, if I were fighting like one of these jabrones, right? Would I rather be kneed in the face while the guy holds my arms and pulls me in towards his knee while thrusting forward with his knee? Or would I take a spin kick to the face? I would rather take a spin kick to the face. The Kamigoya, and like I wasn't trying to bury the fact that Kota Ibushi does it as a finisher, because it's a legit finisher. You know, it's like a knee to the face while you pull the person towards you. Like in real life, that could take your head off, right? So for some reason, this just doesn't feel as a finisher in the eyes of the people that are booking it, whereas the Black Mass does. So that's something that, like, it's a little pet peeve, but it is what it is. I didn't particularly like that. Next up, we have the Viking Raiders doing their open challenge for the Raw Tag Team titles. I thought AOP was going to come out. That would have been the smart thing to do here. They had the OC come out. Now, I knew that the OC were not going to win the belts, right? It didn't feel like they were going to win the belts. It seems to me like the people that are going to get the next big title run are the AOP as part of their new stable, basically, with Seth Rollins. So, to protect both teams, it ended in a double countout. This felt like a Raw match. This didn't feel special at all. It didn't feel like a championship match. I was thinking about it while watching. I was like, the Viking Raiders, I mean, they're cool. I dig the Viking Raiders. Don't get me wrong, you know? But the problem with the Viking Raiders is that, like, are they really that good, right? Are they really that interesting? Or are they just another big man tag team? I think it's the latter of the two. You know, they were like fun in ROH and in New Japan a little bit, but they were fun there because they were fighting people that are like they're the only big tag team, basically, right? And when they would fight like Davey Boy Smith and whatever the fuck he's called now, Lance Hoyt, basically, right? When they would fight those two guys, it was like, oh, these four giants. And now they don't, but in WWE, they're not as gigantic as like they would be in New Japan. They're athletic, they're fun, but it's like, it's over, man. Like, they've done everything they need to do. Now it's time to release them, in my opinion. Like, what more can they do, like, in their career? Like, is anyone really enticed at all by, like, the prospect of Viking Raiders versus AOP? No, not at all, man. It's all about storylines. Watch my last video, motherfuckers, if you still doubt that it's about storylines. So, anyways, next up, we had a match that actually has a quasi-storyline, which is King Corbin versus Roman Reigns. First off, King Corbin comes out, and his music is atrocious. We've talked about this before, fuckers, but the truth is what it is. It's like his old music, and then it just cuts off randomly, and you just hear some like kingly, regal type music. I don't like it at all. Now, despite the fact that his entrance is complete garbage, and I don't really like the fact that he's King Corbin now, I don't like how people, every time they win King of the Ring, they take this like king character, right? It only works if you do it ironically like Kurt Angle did, where he was like, I'm King Kurt, and his entire gimmick was that he's this like, kind of like a nerd, right? Who like really thinks it's cool to pretend you're a king, right? Or King Booker, who was doing it also ironically in the sense that like, you know, like he's obviously not like a kingly guy. He has like an outline character. He has like a gimmick, right? Where he's like this, you know, can you dig it, sucker? And all of a sudden now he's a king, right? It's funny because he's taking it seriously, even though he already has his fleshed out character, right? Once again, irony isn't cool. So don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that like, it, you know, when Kurt Angle or Booker T did it, it was cool because it was ironic. No, it was cool because Kurt Angle was like this retard who would just run around and declare himself king, and he started just calling himself King Kurt, and he beat people with like a scepter, right? And Booker T just took an entire different persona. He started like talking in an accent, right? And it was just different, you know. It was like the only time that Booker T created it like a new character. It was like a hit or miss for people, but I personally enjoyed it because it was so exaggerated and so over the top, right? Like he would like open his eyes really wide and then grab his like his cape or whatever the fuck it's called when a king wears it and hold it up and spin around, you know? It was just like this weird flamboyant thing. Like he had different mannerisms, a different way of speaking. Like all he needed was like a different finishing move. And that would have been one of the greatest gimmicks of all time, in my opinion. And easily the greatest. It already is the greatest, like, King of the Ring, you know, gimmick change, if you will. But King Corbin doesn't do anything. He just goes around and he actually acts like a king, like a tyrant. You know, he's like, you peasants shouldn't speak to me this way. And it doesn't come off as, like, goofy or foolish. It comes off as, like, this guy, like they treat it like it's real. You know, Michael Cole's like, oh, he's not a good king. And then, like, Corey Graves is like, he's the king of the ring in WWE. Right? But not like King of the Ring, like he won King of the Ring, but he is the king of the ring. Like as if like everyone else should like acknowledge his status as anything that matters, right? Like at the end of the day, you won a tournament like 6 months ago, who gives a rat's ass? You know, people shouldn't give a shit, right? But it's presented as if it's a big deal, and it should be. But back in the day, it was a big deal because a lot of times, either the King of the Ring winner would get a title shot, or this would be used as a platform to elevate this person. Right? The last few King of the Rings, it has not been like that. Like Sheamus, Wade Barrett, Baron Corbin, fucking William Regal. Like these people have not been elevated at all by winning the King of the Ring. To the point where it's like either do it or just stop doing King of the Ring at all. Back in the day, like I remember, like I think it was the year 2000, they did like the biggest King of the Ring, where it was like 64 people, and they would do it like Monday, and then Tuesday night or Thursday night SmackDowns. And then at pay-per-views they have matches. They have all these matches, right, to determine who would be the King of the Ring. And I think that was the year Kurt Angle won it. I might be wrong, but it had like Eddie Guerrero was in it, Chyna, Jericho, right, and there was all these people in the company that were like essentially like either lower mid-carders or like new people. Or even mid-carders like Val Venus, but like you knew he wasn't going to win. You know, there's all these people where you thought to yourself like, all right, these people, like one of these people will definitely be pushed forward, right? Just like when Brock Lesnar was a King of the Ring. You knew like this kid was going to be like the next big thing, motherfuckers. So you looked forward to it, right? Furthermore, the King of the Ring served the purpose of kind of creating a hierarchy, right? Because, you know, like in the first round, you'd have like, all right, here's like for a King of the Ring qualifier or for like the first round of the King of the Ring, like Scotty 2 Hotty versus Val Venus, right? And you'd have Val Venus beating Scotty 2 Hotty. You're like, all right, now we've reestablished that Val Venus is above Scotty 2 Hotty, right? And therefore, whoever beats Val Venus is also ahead of Scotty 2 Hotty, right? It just kind of reestablishes things. But in recent memory, it's been the exact opposite. It's been like, let's have like random meaningless matches, right? That will lead to nothing except for someone having like some sort of reign as like a kingly type character. It's stupid. So after, like once the match started, Michael Cole said, oh, Baron Corbin has no friends because Bobby Roode is out. Because apparently like in kayfabe, he's like he got hurt or something, like Roman Reigns took him out. And Dolph Ziggler also was taken out. So it's just him, right? The match was like exactly what you'd expect, kind of boring, you know. I expected Baron Corbin to win just because like, I'm kind of sick of Roman Reigns winning, and I think so is everybody else. So what happened was, eventually Dolph Ziggler comes out, interferes. Michael Cole says, "I thought he was gone," and I'm like, "So did I. But that's because you told me, Michael Cole." So he comes out, then the Revival come out, and basically these people just beat the shit out of Roman Reigns. Ultimately, Baron Corbin hits the end of days and wins. Nothing special here. Again, I guess it felt like a pay-per-view match because it was like a TLC match, right? But it didn't feel like a main event. And this was, in my opinion, presented as like the main match in many ways in terms of like storylines at least, right? Next, we had Bray Wyatt versus The Miz. And this was disgusting. I hated every second of this, and I'll explain why, motherfucks, because I'm sure some of you loved it, and I could see why someone might love it, but I personally hated it. Number one, The Miz comes out. They have the little promo package of Maurice going crazy that Bray Wyatt or The Fiend are in their house. Like, how about lock the door, man? He's just a fucking asshole. He's a fat asshole who just comes in through doors. He's not like this like magician type, right? So anyways, the match starts. Miz comes out. Right, Bray Wyatt comes out, and his music is not like the Fiend's music. It's the "We're really glad that you're a cuck, and this is a cucking that will always suck," or something like that, right? So he has that music, and it's just like long as shit. And he comes out with the Universal title. Now, I understand the Universal title is the least prestigious title probably in the history of wrestling. Somewhere up there with like the TNA Legends Champion. Actually, no, that was much more prestigious because Booker T held that title. So, anyways, but it's right up there with like the NXT Cruiserweight title, in my opinion, like in terms of like what title means the least. But it doesn't matter because it's presented as a big deal. This match, for some reason, was not for the title, even though Bray Wyatt won. They should have just made it for the title, to at least just advertise, be like, "Oh, we have like a title match here," right? Whatever. Miz hits the skull-crushing finale. Bray Wyatt doesn't get up like he typically does to no solo finisher. This actually made sense because this is Bray Wyatt, not the Fiend, So ultimately, Bray Wyatt hits the sister Abigail and wins, right? Before the match, when Bray Wyatt makes his entrance, Michael Cole and Cucky Graves are talking about how the fans have let Bray Wyatt in, right? The fans are just cheering because Bray Wyatt is like interacting with them, They're like, oh, like he would keep going in and out of the ring and kind of like, hold up his title, and they would interact, and then like Michael Cole takes this and turns it into like the fans have let him in. Like, I fucking hate that shit. I hate when like Michael Cole or these other morons like basically like pretend that the fans are complete morons. It's like when Bray Wyatt was evil, right? When he was just like normal, regular Bray Wyatt, and he'd come out to his music, and people would hold their phones, right? The Fireflies would hold their phones. Michael Cole would be like, "Oh my God, the people, like Bray Wyatt has like brainwashed the people." No, he hasn't, retard. It's just people holding up cell phones because they want to be part of the show, And it's like, it's so ridiculous. It kind of puts over Bray Wyatt's like charisma and abilities as if they're like legendary, It's like, oh my God, Bray Wyatt, like even though Michael Cole and Jerry the King Lawler are able to see through his ruse, the WWE fans are not smart enough, basically, and they just become his Fireflies. Yeah, that's what it is, retard. And every time when the WWE fans cheer for JBL, it's because like they hate like Latinos, or they hate poor people, or they hate Kurt Angle, where the fuck he was fighting, right? No, they just want to be part of it. They like JBL because he's cool, and that's it. You know what I mean? So I don't like this when the announcers try to conflate fan reactions as something that they're not. Now, once in a while, you're gonna do that, and I understand. Once in a while, like if the fans are saying like Cena sucks, for example, you're gonna try to make it seem as if it's like, oh, it's polarizing, like they appreciate him, or like when fans chant "You suck" to Kurt Angle because they're neckbeards, right? Like they chant that. Michael Cole has to contextualize it and be like, oh, Kurt Angle really gets a kick out of this. Of course, he doesn't get a kick out of it. He just accepts that because fans are complete sheep. He's like, I have to just deal with this. I have to like spin this somehow to make it so when they say "you suck," I pretend I'm happy. You know what I mean? So there you go. That was a little rant about that. Speaking of Bray Wyatt and his entrance, the problem was that Bray Wyatt, when he came out with this music, he had, like I said, he had the Universal title, and even though this title is the jobber title, it's still presented as like the number 2 / tied for number 1 title, right? So he comes out with this, and the music is like straight up clown music, you know? Pardon me. Straight up like, we're really glad that, like all that stupid shit, right? Now imagine if, like, there's gotta be some people out there who for some reason have chosen TLC to be the pay-per-view that they show their loved ones, right? Maybe like their girlfriend or their boyfriend or whatever the fuck, maybe like maybe a real lapsed fan, right? And so let's imagine that there's someone out there, there's gonna be a few people that are watching WWE for the first time today, right? Or for the first time in a long time, right? And let's say like some of them don't know who Bray Wyatt is. And they ask like, oh, what's the Universal title? Is that like the new European title that the jobber has? Because I see The Miz and Bray Wyatt, so I'm thinking these guys must be jobbers, right? And then the person who watches wrestling informs them and says, no, this is actually the most important title, which is considered an equivalent to the WWE title, held by Stone Cold and The Rock and Kane and Undertaker and Kurt Angle and Shawn Michaels and Triple H and all these other legends, right? So the person's like, okay, so who's the champion? And then before they have that question answered, Bray Wyatt comes out in his children's show character as WWE champion. And then the person who's actually a fan has to explain to this new fan or this lapsed fan, oh, no, his gimmick is that he's also the Fiend and like all this stupid crap, right? But the facts speak for themselves. Bray Wyatt comes out with children's music as WWE champion. This goofball retard, right? It reminded me a lot of, what's it called? Split and, what the hell's the new one? Glass, right? The M. Night Shyamalan movies where James McAvoy plays like this character with like, whatever, 13 split personalities or whatever. And one of them is like this retarded boy, basically. He's like a boy, right? But he's in the body of a grown man. And then the other one is the Beast. It's obviously that. Like they stole it directly from that, right? The Beast, the Fiend, same shit. So, like, and the Bray Wyatt children's show character is kind of like the retarded boy. He's like in awe of the Fiend, right? And I'm just like, all right, like that's kind of weird, right? But if you just saw, if the movie Split was just the boy, like a split personality guy was just the boy, and that's all you knew, you'd be like, what the fuck? That's the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. So I didn't like that. The match was short. After the match, the Fiend appears on the Titantron, and Bray Wyatt looks at him and says like, he's like happy. He's like, I'll do it. So he goes out and gets like a mallet under the ring, the mallet that he used against Seth Rollins. Michael Cole says, what the hell is that? And I'm like, it's the fucking same mallet that he used like 2 matches ago. But nonetheless, the issue I had with this was because as soon as the Fiend appeared, I'm like, a light bulb came onto my head, fuckers. A light bulb came on, cucks. And the light bulb said this: wouldn't it be a great storyline somehow if they do some sort of like Bray Wyatt versus the Fiend, right? Now, of course, that can't be a match, right? But that could be the storyline, right? Where the Fiend is portrayed as this legitimate heel, like a monster heel, and Bray Wyatt turns face. Think about that. Bray Wyatt turns face, and his entire point, his entire gimmick, is that he tries to help wrestlers avoid the Fiend, right? This is perfect for wrestling. You know, you can have a match where like the Fiend is destroying someone who's good, and that person who's good pretty much like appeals to like Bray Wyatt's good side, right? He's like, don't do it, Bray. You're better than this. And maybe for a moment, the Fiend like loses his mind because he's already done that. He's already started losing his mind in matches. Turns into Bray Wyatt, the guy like rolls him up or something, or the Bray Wyatt walks away, right? And you can make a long, drawn-out story of how Bray Wyatt is like this good guy who just cannot control his demon. This actually would be a different character than what we have, which is the same thing as the old Bray Wyatt. It's just that like now, he just wears a mask. And sometimes, basically it's the same guy. He just sometimes wears a mask, sometimes he wears like a sweater, you know? So I did not like this at all. It could, primarily because I think my idea is way better. Then we had Lashley and Rusev. Who gives a shit? I have a feeling this match, this angle is not over somehow. So Bobby Lashley beat Rusev by putting him through a table. It was a tables match, so that made sense. Next, and finally, I started thinking to myself, what the hell is going on? You know? What the hell is going on? What's the last match going to be? Right? You had the title match before last. You had King Corbin and Roman Reigns before last. Then I'm like, oh, of course, the women's match. Yeah, you have to have the women's match last. That's just how it is nowadays, right? And in this case, I actually would have to agree. Because Becky Lynch and Charlotte are like along with Roman Reigns, are by far the biggest stars on this card, which is very weird to say, but it's true, right? And they're fighting the Kabuki Warriors. So that's kind of, I'm not going to say I was looking forward to it. I don't really give a rat's ass what happens. But the match was all right. You know, it went on pretty long. You have to consider a bunch of factors, right? The match went on like quite long. It is like a hardcore type match. There are, of course, some limitations. Like, for example, there was a spot later in the match where Kairi Sane does like an elbow, I think on Becky Lynch, right? And like off either the apron or the turnbuckle, I don't remember, right? And the table doesn't break because Kairi Sane is like a tiny, tiny woman. Immediately after that, Kairi Sane screws up and basically like botches taking a spear from Charlotte. Charlotte goes for a spear. It looks like Kairi Sane doesn't know what the fuck she's supposed to do. So Charlotte doesn't really like go down with the spear. She just kind of like hits her a little bit. You know what I mean? And Kairi goes down. Now, that's whatever. A botch is a botch. But keep in mind, this is a main event match, motherfuckers. Right? Immediately after the spear, Charlotte tries to do a power bomb on Kairi Sane. And Kairi Sane, they can spin this however they want. The fact is, Kairi Sane didn't know what the fuck was going on for some reason. So she did not go up like she's supposed to for the power bomb. So Charlotte had to like kind of inch her way there. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, how are they gonna like, you know, resolve this? Are they gonna have it so that like Kairi Sane kind of like counters it maybe? I don't know what they're gonna do. No, it was just a very, very long and very, very horrible sequence of events that involved the spear and Kairi Sane's eventual power bombing through a table, motherfuckers. What else can we say about this match? I do like the Kabuki Warriors. I'm not gonna lie; they're entertaining in their own right. You know what I mean? Like there's something there. Like they feel like a tag team. At first, I was like, oh, they're just throwing these two Japanese broads together just because, you know, they need to do something. But you know, it's working as it should, I guess. Ultimately, the right thing happened. Kabuki Warriors retain the titles up in this bitch. Yeah. So yeah, that was kind of all right, I guess. Overall, the show was complete garbage because none of these matches felt like pay-per-view matches, except for, ironically, the main event match and maybe the King Corbin versus Ziggler match. Everything else just felt like a match that would be like in the first hour of SmackDown, you know. So, and also there was like no real championship matches except for the tag team matches. Now, here's the problem. You know what I'm saying? Here's the problem with this whole Kabuki Warriors, Becky Lynch, and Charlotte Flair nonsense, right? The tag team titles, motherfuckers. The women's tag team championships have now main evented a pay-per-view. I don't even think that the men's tag team championship, when there was only one, ever main evented a pay-per-view, unless it was part of something greater. Like, you know, you had like the tag champs, like Kane and Undertaker, versus like Stone Cold and Triple H, who were the WWE and Intercontinental Champion. So it was like that kind of scenario, right? Where like all the titles were on the line or something like that. Here, this is just a match for the women's tag team championship. Keep that in mind, man. We had a match for the women's tag team championships like last month on NXT against like Dakota Kai and Tegan Knox, wherever the fuck they fought. So how can this title go from the prestige of NXT to that of a pay-per-view? I mean, the answer is simple. This was a jobber pay-per-view. But irrespective of that, you would expect something a little bit more. You know, the primary issue with this was that this did not feel like a pay-per-view. So with that in mind, motherfuckers, I give it about 3.5 stars up in this bitch. Out of 10, though, not out of 5. We do a 10-star system. Just like we do a 25 reasons why AEW sucks. And I might do an AEW sucks 25 reasons part 2 up in this bitch, which would mean we have reasons 26 to reason 50. We're going to keep going up in this bitch, motherfuckers. But for now, I'll leave you with this video. Good night. See you what's tomorrow. Monday Night Raw, so we'll probably get a video tomorrow as well, bitches.